Hi again, welcome back to the show. We're joined today by Sheldon Wolf. He is the president of Canada Credit Fix and is one of Canada's top forensic credit experts. He is a specialist and an educator to Canadians on topics such as credit restoration, credit score modification, debt settlement, and identity theft protection. Sheldon brings to the table over 25 years of credit experience and currently sits on the board of directors for the Credit Institute of Canada. Sheldon, once again, thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, first of all, we've spoken on many occasions in the past, but today I want to chat more about the idea of debt settlement. So if you're ready for that, let's go.
Bring it on.
First of all, can you really cut someone's debt in half? I've heard this. I've heard this over and over. This is something you can do. So give us the skinny, give us the details on that.
Absolutely. What we are is it's an alternative to what Canadians typically do, I hate to say, but they file bankruptcy, the creditor ends up with nothing, nobody wins, the customer ends up with bad credit, everyone's a loser in that case. What we've done is we've come up with a system where instead of someone just writing off absolutely everything, we contact the creditors and we cut deals with them. And several different ways to do that. Will they take 50 cents on the buck? A lot of times, depending on the debt, how old it is, how tough it's been to collect, there's several different variations, but a lot of times they will. Sometimes they'll take less, and sometimes they negotiate less. So, I mean, every situation is different, but absolutely we get 50 cents on the buck negotiations all the time.
Sounds promising. So what would you say is the average savings for a customer?
I tell people, depending on what the debt and who we're dealing with, I mean, it could be anywhere from 30 to 70 cents on the dollar. And then depending on your situation, if it's a genuine hardship where you've been hospitalized, you're sick, or something that is beyond your control, where you simply can't pay, and at the same time, you want to maintain the relationship with your creditor. I mean, every situation is different, but I'd say to average it, you're going to run anywhere from 30 to 70%.
And what are the two main types of debt settlement?
Well, there's the one that everybody knows. Let's say you owe $20,000 to your creditor and your life savings is $8,000 and maybe your whole family's pulled together to give you that $8,000. That's a lump sum settlement where essentially you're contacting the creditor and we're saying, hey, our client's in this situation, he's been hospitalized, he's sick, this is what's happened, his family's gotten together, they've given him $8,000, he wants to settle this debt, he doesn't want to file bankruptcy, and everyone works together to get that. That's the lump sum settlement. The other type is, let's just say the guy owes $20,000 to various different creditors, and now because of job loss and whatnot, he's living off insurance while he's dealing with injury or accident or what the situation is, and maybe he only has $600 a month that he can contribute to this debt. So what we'll do is we'll go to each creditor and say, here's the situation, and he doesn't want to file bankruptcy, he doesn't want to not pay you, but here's the situation. We're encouraging you to work with us, and that's what we're all about, is encouraging the creditors and collectors to negotiate with our client and come up with a reasonable solution, whether it's a permanent solution or just a temporary while our client's down on his luck. Those are the two main, and then you get into custom settlements, but for the most part, you find that one fits under this category, it fits under that category.
Sheldon, can you negotiate judgments?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to look at it this way. We deal with mainly unsecured debt. But let's face it, anybody who's owed money, regardless of how big or small, wants to collect their money. And for the most part, our clients aren't people running away from the debt. Our clients are people who want to deal with it, and or otherwise they would have filed bankruptcy. They care too much about their credibility and their character, and they want to cut deals. So I would say we can negotiate on just about anything where money is owed, period.
Why can you only negotiate unsecured debt?
Typically, unsecured debt is where the creditor is most vulnerable. Like take a mortgage, for example. If you don't pay your mortgage, the bank says, well, fine, I guess we'll take your house and all the equity there too. Automobile, well, they'll take back the car. You wake up in the morning, the car is gone, and then they'll sell it and get what they can for it. But talk about a credit card, well, you don't pay them, they're on the hook for the whole debt. they become very interested in hearing what we have to say when we contact them, say, well, our customer's in this unique situation, and he does want to pay you. He does want to pay you, but this is all he can afford right now. And they have the most to lose because they don't have much recourse other than to sue you. But like I said, if you're not working, you lost your job, they can get a judgment, but what does that do if there's no job to so they're very negotiable.
Yeah, and in another interview, you had mentioned that some of the debts get start bar debts settled for $0. Can you really get a creditor or a collector to walk away from their debt? And what's a stat barred?
Stat barred is a debt that's no longer legally collectible. Excuse me. And a lot of times a collector will still try and collect on them, including debts that were already discharged in a bankruptcy. We see that all the time. And I mean, it simply violates the I guess the problem is the consumer really doesn't know what's stat barred unless they're in our industry. So you'd be surprised how many people are being bullied and intimidated by collectors and creditors. And when we start taking over the file, I just look at it and say, that's a file that they're not getting any money on. It's just not going to happen. I'd rather use their money, the consumer's money, to deal with legitimate debts that are legitimately owed. And you'd be amazed at how many times collectors simply don't even have the right paperwork. They're trying to collect money from someone, and they don't even have any kind of justification for interest or the penalties, let alone a stitch of paperwork or a signature. So.
Well, we talked with a client of yours a few weeks back, and they had said that you had actually got the money back from a collector. Is that possible? And they mentioned that it had something to do with their bankruptcy being discharged. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We see this all the time, and that's what I said. We see people trying to collect illegitimate debts or unsubstantiated debts. We see people getting bullied for money they don't even owe on cell phones that they've never had, and then the collection agencies bought the debt from the telecom company, and now they're bullying them, and sometimes they actually do intimidate them to give them the money, and then they leave the guy's credit a mess on top of it. So we see files where people have been tricked into paying debts that were already discharged in bankruptcies, and that's a big no-no, especially if it's a national bank, and I won't name who they are. But it's happened, and maybe it was a debt that was moved to a third party for collection, but nonetheless, it was an illegal debt to collect, and the money was graciously handed back to our client pronto.
So each day I hear more and more about debt settlement companies coming into Canada. It seems like the industry, it's booming. What do Canadian consumers need to look for when hiring a debt settlement agency?
Well, I've said this on when I discuss credit repair topics. Make sure they are Canadian, and by making sure they're Canadian does not mean that just because they have a Canadian flag on their website or they have a fake address that's really a UPS store in Oshawa, Ontario, that does not make them Canadian. Canadian means their real office is in Canada. You can actually talk to real people who are in Canada, not forwarded to Florida. Make sure they are licensed. You need to know who's actually working on your credit. You don't want this to be some call center where they're doing paper pushing in India. You want a company that's on the ground with real experts, people who have many, many years of experience. You want to know what their experience are. These are people handling your debts. So always important to make sure that it's a legitimate company.
There's a misconception that people are use companies like yours simply to get out of paying their bills. Are those your typical clients or elsewhere?
Absolutely not. Our customers are looking for an option so they don't have to file bankruptcy. They don't want to be in a consumer proposal where for the next 5 years they're trapped in some kind of a system where they're paying and paying and paying, and then after they've paid their last payment in 5 years from now, they're stuck with crappy credit for 3 more years. So these are people who are trying to find solutions faster. They don't want to run from their debt. They actually want to deal with their debt, but due to financial capacity and changes to their lifestyle, whether it be demotions in their job, whether it be accident and injury, illness, their life has changed, and they don't want to leave their creditors hanging high and dry. That's not my customers are ones that do care, and we care as a company too. So
balance. Well, I assume that because you deal with the same creditors and collectors each and every day, you can probably get your clients better deals. I guess that's the fact.
absolutely. We have contacts at pretty much almost every single collection agency. We have people in every single bank, every lending institution that we talk to on a regular basis. It's not that we're just talking about your file. We're talking about hundreds of other clients and consumers as well. So we have a good rapport and a good reputation, and that goes a long way because they're used to dealing with the actual consumer and hearing the checks in the mail all the time. So when we get on the phone and say, we're handling this client now, we're working with them, we're trying to make things better, it goes a long way knowing that we've stepped in and we're educating the customer and working with them.
Seems like you're here to help good people with bad situations, and it's always admired when Canadians like you can step up and help. Sheldon, thanks as always for doing an interview with us. It's always great to hear from you and the improvements you've made to Canadians and their credit solutions. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
So if you're looking for more information on Canada Credit Fix and their Credit Slab credit improvement system, please go to www.canadacreditfix.com or give them a call toll free at 1-866-530-3646. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again real soon.